Okay, boys and girls, we are getting ready to make our irrigation systems. So we have to talk a little bit about our plants that we're going to be using, or the different types of plants, and our detailed water needs. So we are on page 27 in our book. So let's look. It says here, detailed water needs. You know that plants need water to survive, right? We talked about that last time. And some plants need water more often than others. Now I have a bunch of house plants at home, and some of them need more water than others. So when I'm watering them, sometimes I measure out the amount of water that I need. Because I have some orchids. Does anybody have orchids at home? Yes. So the orchids, I measure a 1/4 cup of water. That's about how much I need to give them every week. Now, the amount of light and how moist or dry indoor air is also determine how much water is needed. So there's different factors that go into how much you need to water your plant. And so we have here, it says water me more or less. And so what we're going to do is we're going to compare the water needs of these plants in the indoor garden under different weather conditions. So let's look at the different plants that we have here. I'm going to move this up some so we can see this a little bit better. Yes?
Can I read the first one?
You have to put your hand up and not just call out my name like that, okay? So we're going to look at our first plant, which is right here. Okay? And that is, what type of plant is that? Mikey, could you read about that plant? Plant A?
Aloe. Conditions sunny and dry every 1 to 3 weeks. Cloudy and damp every 1 to 2 months.
Okay, so if it's sunny and dry, the conditions are, that's what that means. Sunny and dry conditions, you have to water it every 1 to 3 weeks. If it is cloudy and damp, you have to do it every 1 to 2 months. So that's a big variation, isn't it, in how often you have to water that plant. Big difference. Let's look at our next plant, plant B, which is right here. Could you please read about plant B, please, Jensen?
Boston fern. Conditions sunny and dry. Few times a week. Cloudy and damp every 1 to 2 weeks.
Every 1 to 2 weeks. Does anybody have a Boston fern at home? Maybe some of you have the ferns. Okay, let's do plant C, which is right here. It's got the little red flowers on it. Okay, who'd like to read about plant C, please? Teddy?
A Christmas cactus. Conditions sunny and dry. Every other day, cloudy and damp. Every 2 weeks.
Oh, so that's a big difference, isn't it? If it's sunny and dry, you have to water it every other day. But if it is cloudy and damp, every 2 weeks. Okay, let's look at plant D, which is over here. Please read about that, Elisa.
Fig tree. Boston.
Conditions.
Conditions sunny and dry. Weekly, cloudy and damp every 2 weeks.
Okay, so when it's sunny and dry, we water it every week. When it's cloudy and damp, every 2 weeks. Let's look at plant E, which is up here in the corner. Olive, Gerber,
Conditions sunny and dry. Daily. Cloudy and damp every other day.
okay, like the Gerber daisies, you see them outside, they're so pretty and cheerful looking. Okay, let's try plant F, which is right, oh. Who has not done one yet? Logan?
Data blade. Conditions sunny and dry every week. Cloudy and damp every 1 to 2 weeks.
Okay. Let's try plant G, so that was the jade plant. Plant G is up here. Ethan, would you like to read about our plant G, our pothos?
Yes. Sunny and dry daily, dry and damp weekly.
Okay. Let's try plant H, right here. Libby, what kind of plant is that? A snake plant?
Sunny and dry few times a week. Cloudy and damp every 1 to 2 weeks.
Okay, so why do we think that these details are important when we're designing an irrigation system? Why would those details be important? Why would we need to know these things? Kelsey?
Because then you know how much water it needs.
Because then we'll know how much water they need. What do you think?
My mom has that plant.
Oh, does your mom have a snake plant? Yes, they're pretty popular house plant. So yes, we need to know how much water they need so we know when we're designing our irrigation system. Yes.
So we have this aloe plant.
Oh, you have an aloe plant?
Is it a pot? That's actually as tall as me.
That it's what?
As tall as me.
As tall as you? They can get pretty big. Yeah, some of these plants.
It's an aloe plant. It's real. We have a bunch of aloe plants.
Yes. That's pretty cool. So boys and girls, you need to know how much water it needs. You're going to need to know how many times you're going to need to water it during break, right? So we're going to need to know how much water our plant is going to need. Now, what would happen if we had, let me pick a plant here. Let's look at our aloe. Oh, let's look at our aloe. That's the example of Logan. Logan has an aloe plant. And let's say we designed an irrigation system and it watered it every single day. What do you think would happen to our aloe plant if it got watered every single day? Look at its water needs. What do you think would happen to that aloe plant if we watered it every single day? Yes, Olive?
It would get overwatered.
It'd get overwatered. Would that be good for the plant?
No.
No, it would not be good. It wouldn't grow well, or it might even do what? What could happen? It could die. We could overwater it and kill the plant. Very, very good. So it's important that we be knowledgeable about the plants that we're going to be watering. Okay, so we're going to have to figure out, so we know about some irrigation systems. As a matter of fact, you know what? We know about some irrigation systems, but you know what? I have a little video I'm going to show you about irrigation systems to give you a little bit more information about irrigation systems. So we're going to watch that right now. Let me get to that.
Hi, I am Emerald Robinson, and in this What Is video, we'll take a look at the agricultural technique known as irrigation. Irrigation is any means used by humans to bring water to the land. It can be as simple as using a garden hose to water a flower bed, or as complex as a system of pipes and canals designed to bring moisture to a desert. Irrigation is used wherever rainfall is either inconsistent or does not provide enough natural water to grow crops. It's estimated that about half of the world's land is irrigated. Humans have been using irrigation for thousands of years. The ancient Egyptians used the Nile's annual flooding to water their farmland, while the Persians were one of the first civilizations known to use a series of wells and tunnels to move naturally occurring groundwater to specific plots of soil. There are many modern types of irrigation, but the three most common are flood or furrow irrigation, when water is pumped or otherwise carried to fields and allowed to flow over the ground. Drip irrigation, when water is sent across through pipes that have holes in them. This method uses about 25% less water than flood irrigation, since less is lost to evaporation. and spray irrigation, in which water is pumped through pipes at high pressure through a nozzle. Because it requires electricity and wastes a significant amount of water, spray irrigation is becoming less popular. Although irrigation is necessary, it also causes problems. Irrigation uses a lot of water. About 39% of the water in the U.S. goes towards irrigating crops. It is a major expense for farmers. The excess water or runoff from irrigation contributes to pollution by carrying dissolved salt and pesticide residues into the local water supply. Fortunately, computers are becoming more frequently used to sense where water is needed. This technology eliminates waste, lowers costs, and prevents damage to the environment.
For thousands of how-to and advice videos on any topic, visit monkeyc.com.
Yeah, it was short. So here's what we need to do, boys and girls. We need to use what we learned about the different plants and how much they need to be watered to figure out the watering needs of some of our plants. So we need to figure out how many times we'll need to water each plant over break. So I want you to turn to page 28. Turn to page 28. So we're going to have to kind of be going back and forth between 27 and 28. Now it says, who's thirsty? Our plant type. Number of waterings per 2 weeks for sunny and dry classroom. So number 1 is a classroom dry. Yes. It's not going to be raining and damp in our classroom, is it? No, we're going to assume it's not going to be rainy and dry. Is it going to be sunny in the classroom? Yes, we'll say it's going to be sunny because the blinds will be open and we'll have sunny and dry conditions in the classroom. So the conditions in the classroom will be sunny and dry. So now here's what we need to do, boys and girls. We are going to look at the plant watering needs, and then we're going to figure out how many times we need to water the plants. Okay? So our first plant we want to figure out is the aloe. And this is over a 2-week period. So here's our aloe. Everybody go back in your book. Find the aloe. Find the aloe. We're going to be gone for 2 weeks. How many times in sunny and dry conditions? Look where it says sunny and dry. It needs to be watered every 1 to 3 weeks. So how many times do you think we should water that aloe? How many times do you think we should water that aloe in that 2-week period? How many times do you think we should water it? What do you think?
Twice or once?
Probably once would be good. So let's write 1 time. So let's write 1. I think 1 time will be good. Right here, write 1 for aloe. Okay, 1. Okay, 1 time. We're going to go 1 time. Now, let's look at our Boston fir. Now, our Boston fir needs to be watered. Read what it says for sunny and dry. How many times does it need to be watered during sunny and dry? How many times do we have to water it? Ivy, how many times do we have to water a Boston fern in sunny and dry conditions?
A few times a week.
A few times a week. How many weeks are we going to be out of school?
2.
2. So how many times do you think we should water our Boston fir?
3.
In 2 weeks? This is, we have to water it a few times a week.
A week. You should probably do it like 3 times
Over 2 weeks?
over each week.
Each time, so how many times is that?
6.
6, okay, we'll say we could go with 6 times. We can water it 6 times. So let's write 6 times. We're gonna write 6 times. 6 times. Okay, 6 times. Now, let's look at our next plant we have listed. And we have got the Christmas cactus, that's right here. Oh, what does this one say? How many times do we have to water, how often do we water the Christmas cactus? Christmas cactus. It says what? Logan, how many times?
Every other day.
Every other day. So how long are we gonna be gone for?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. So how many times are we gonna have to water that Christmas cactus? Not 24 times. We're gonna be gone, how many days are we gonna be gone in 2 weeks? 14 days. So every other day for 14 days.
7 days.
7 days, very good. So we're gonna water it 7 days. 7 days. So put a 7 there. Put a 7. Now, let's look at our next plant is a fig tree. Fig tree. Elisa, look at the fig tree. How often do we have to water a fig tree in sunny and dry conditions? Weekly. So we're going to be gone 2 weeks. So how many times are we going to have to water it if we have to water it weekly? How many times would weekly be? If I have to do something weekly, how many times is that? If you do something weekly, how many times do you do it? How many times a week do you do something weekly? What does that mean, weekly? How many times do you think you do something if you do it weekly?
7.
That would be daily. If you do something 7 times, that would be, you'd probably be doing it daily. You're doing it weekly, it means you do it 1 time. So we need to water our fig tree. It needs to be watered weekly, and we're gonna be gone for 2 weeks. So how many times do we need to water our fig tree? We're gonna be gone for 2 weeks, and we have to water it weekly. We're gonna be gone for 2 weeks. So how many times am I gonna water it the first week?
2.
It gets watered weekly. How many times is it, if it gets watered weekly, it gets watered 1 time per week. We're gonna be gone 2 weeks. So how many times do you think I'm gonna water it in 2 weeks? Okay. How many times do I water it in a week? 1 time in a week. So how many times am I gonna water it the next week? 1 time. So how many times am I gonna water it in those 2 weeks? 2 times. 2 times, everybody. Good job. So we're gonna water that fig tree twice. 2 times. 2 times. Okay, now we have our Gerber daisies. At least I think that's going to be a Gerber daisy. That is, which one is that? That is, plant, that one is up here. We have to water that one. What does that say? What does that one say? Yes, Kelsey?
Daily
Daily. So how many times are we gonna have to water that? 14 times, because we have to water it every single day. Every single day we're gone. This is gonna be a lot to figure out. At this point, I think I'm just gonna hand everybody a plant to take home. Okay. Okay, here's our next plant, our pothos. And it says, how often do we have to do that one? Oh, did we already do that one? No. Oh, no, I'm sorry, we're on our jade plant. Wrong plant. I have to get our jade plant. How often do we have to do our jade plant? Olive?
Every week.
Every week, so we're gonna be gone for 2 weeks. How often do we have to water that jade plant?
Twice.
2 times. The jade plant needs to be done every week. Okay, now let's look at our pothos. This says what? Avery, how often?
Daily.
Daily. So we're gonna be gone 2 weeks. How often do we have to water that plant?
14.
14 times. That plant needs a lot of watering. Now, last plant, our snake plant. Where's the snake plant? There's the snake plant. Now this one needs to be watered how often? How often does the snake plant need to be watered? Ivy?
Few times a week.
A few times a week. So how many times do we want to water our snake plant?
2 times a week, so 4 times.
Well, a few times would be more, a few times is more than that. Otherwise, we'd say we needed to water it a couple of times.
So 4 times a week.
Okay, so then how many times do we want to?
8 times.
8 times. So we'll say 8 times. 8 times. Eight times. So now boys and girls, let me ask you this question. So how does an irrigation system for indoor plants differ from an irrigation system for outdoor plants? How do you think they differ from each other? Yes, Jensen?
One's outside, one's inside, one has more plants and one has less.
Okay, what other factors might affect an outdoor one that you don't have in an indoor irrigation system? Logan?
So if the outside it rains, it will get watered, but the inside wouldn't, because it doesn't rain in the school.
It rains outside, so yes. What else is outside that you don't have inside as much? Yes?
Well, the animals, like, sometimes the animals eat, like, some plants, like some type of flowers. Sometimes, like, deers and tiger lilies.
Okay, well, there's animals, but that, I don't know, yes. There's other things that affect an irrigation system outside. Yes?
Lots of grass everywhere.
Okay, there's grass that, I don't know how much that affects an irrigation system. But there's grass, yes.
The hose.
A hose can be part of an irrigation system, yes.
Well, because besides the irrigation system, there's also water and groundwater.
There's groundwater, yes, there's groundwater. What's a thing shining up in the sky? Teddy? The sun will affect it outside more than it affects it inside. Oh, you know what else could affect it? Oh, I'm looking at something. Everybody turn and look at that thing. Look at that bush.
Oh! Oh! Oh!
There's something interesting happening with the bush.
Oh! Oh!
Oh, Oh my, what's happening with that bush? That makes me think that irrigation could be affected by what was going on with that bush right now. What was going on with that bush? That irrigation could be affected by that. Aloe?
It's growing.
Well, it's growing, but something else was going on with it. Oh, it's happening to it right this second. Ivy?
It's the wind.
The wind. Wind can affect the amount of water plants get because wind can dry things out. Wind dries things out, boys and girls. So the amount of irrigation that something needs is affected by the sun and the wind. Wind is drying. Wind will dry the ground out. It'll dry the ground. So that will affect it as well. So boys and girls. But obviously, one of the advantages can be rain. So precipitation, rain can help an outdoor irrigation system. But it can make too much rain. So you can't rely on it all the time. So now, boys and girls, let's look at question number 10. Oh, now see, this is an interesting question. Because how can learning more details about needs help you think about solutions to a problem? So we're learning more details. We learned more details about the plants. How did that help us? How did that help us? How do you think? Yes.
Me?
Yes, Ivy.
Well, I think how that helped us is since we're doing a project, it will help us how much water the plant's gonna need.
Yes. And it gave us more details, right? But it helped make it's more complicated than we thought, isn't it? Because we had more details about it. When we're thinking about plants, are we thinking that they all need different amounts of water? No. At first we're just thinking, oh, we just have to water them all the same.
Yeah.
Now we realize that all these different plants have different needs. You can't do them all the same. Okay? So we could say that learning more details helps us or shows that the solution can be more complicated. So learning more details shows us the solution can be more complicated. Can be more complicated than we first thought. Because we had a lot of things come into play that we hadn't thought about, which makes it all that much more interesting. So let's all write that. Now, when you're done writing that, you can put your science book back on your shelf. How do you need to leave your science book out? Because you have to take it. Why don't you put it back on the ledge there because you're going to need it. Along with, you have to do